Hey everybody, this is the recap video for the UFC 217 pay-per-view. I'm once again joined by Pat on the set to go over the pay-per-view fights. We did do a preview video a while back, so this is just an attempt to kind of hold ourselves accountable for our predictions and also just go over generally what happened. We'll start with some of those undercard fights, Pat. I mean, you mentioned a couple in the other video we did that piqued your interest. Why don't you tell us what happened in some of those fights?
Yeah, so the ones I mentioned were Mickey Gall coming back. He's a big name, even though he's a young kid with not a lot of experience. He's got a record of, I think, 7-1 now, or 8-1, somewhere around there. He lost his first time in MMA. It was a pretty one-sided decision. Moving on from that, we went to a fight that I said was going to be a fun light heavyweight match, which was Corey Anderson versus Ovince St. Preux, and Ovince St. Preux continued to be a very, he's underrated in the light heavyweight division, and he just continues to stun people. He slammed his shin into Corey Anderson's head like a baseball bat, and he was out before he hit the mat. His body was limp. It was both terrifying and impressive. The last fight I mentioned was Joe Duffy versus James Vick, which is a real fun fight, just like I imagined. They're both good boxers. Joe Duffy from Ireland, James Vick from Texas, nicknamed the Texecutioner, which is fun, I guess.
Kind of lame, but yeah, okay.
Kind of cheesy, but what are you gonna do? But it was a fun fight. You kind of expected Joe Duffy to have the upper hand in the boxing and stand-up, considering he has a pro record in boxing and James Vick didn't, but hey, James Vick landed an uppercut straight up the middle and put Joe Duffy out. And I think the last one I wanted to mention was Amin Zahabi versus Ricardo Ramos, which was a fun kind of back and forth fight. Amin Zahabi is actually the brother of George St. Pierre, who we'll talk about later. His head coach, Faraz Zahabi, his younger brother, I think. And unfortunately, he was on the wrong end of a spinning back elbow and put to sleep in pretty quick order.
Yeah.
So, I mean, back up onto the main card, we get to the Johnny Hendricks fight, which kind of went the way I thought it was going to go. Paulo Costa, his new nickname, the Eraser. His old nickname is Borrachino, I think. I think he changed it because of the fact that it's so difficult to pronounce for the, English-speaking world. But kind of went the way I thought it would. Johnny Hendricks looked not his old self, kind of lackluster, a little hesitant, and Paulo Costa was a much bigger guy. It looked like they did not belong in the octagon together. It was pretty ridiculous. So he put
maybe some shenanigans at the weigh-in, huh?
Yeah, maybe. Or
maybe just putting a lot of weight on after the weigh-in or something.
Yeah, I mean, it's very possible, but I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if Jeff Nowitzki, the guy who is the head of the UFC's drug enforcement squad and the guy who caught Lance Armstrong, would not be surprised if he goes sniffing around Paulo Costa. That guy is more shredded than anyone rightfully should be. So moving on to the Stephen Thompson-Jorge Masvidal fight, it was a real fun fight. It kind of went the way I expected to. Stephen Thompson was just too good from range, landed a lot of kicks, and his boxing was on point, and Masvidal just wasn't able to close the distance to make it the kind of rough and tumble, brawl that he thrives in. So Stephen Thompson was able to take the pretty one-sided decision there. I think he even had one 10-8 round, which is relatively uncommon. That brings us to the 3 title fights.
Yeah, 3 title fights. I mean, and again, no bullshit. On this channel, we hold ourselves accountable when we're wrong, and boy, were we wrong on the title fights, man. You would think it's a safe bet going with the champions to retain, but every single champion lost their belt at this pay-per-view. It's pretty crazy. Pretty crazy. We had 2 knockouts and a submission, so I guess, last time we talked about the GSP fight first, so we could start there. I mean, that was interesting because, you have GSP, coming back from essentially a mini retirement for this fight, and he was, bloodied fairly early on in the fight, but still ends up winning in the end with a rear naked choke. So, that was an interesting one, though. Just so much blood, and wow, gory event.
Yeah, definitely. I think GSP got cut pretty badly when he was finally able to take Bisping down and hold him down for a little bit. And like I said in the leading up to the fight video, it was not an easy task for GSP to get Bisping down and keep him there for any extended period of time. And once he finally did accomplish that feat, it was not fun for him, to say the least part. Bisping was just busy from the bottom, just throwing elbows and punches and not letting George posture up. And every time George did posture up, he would lift his hips and get him up around the midsection instead of around the hips and pull him back down. And GSP wasn't able to do much in the way of effective ground and pound from that position. And Bisping landed a glancing elbow, I think, right across either the cheek or the brow, I can't remember, of George St. Pierre. And it was just, that's where all the blood came from. Made it a pretty sordid affair.
Yeah. Yeah, so, I mean, it wasn't an easy fight for him by any means to win. It was looking like there was, anytime you get cut open and you got a guy pounding you when he's on the ground, but he did end up pulling it off in the end. And, it kind of, I guess, went to his playbook in a way, ended it with a submission. I mean, he is more of a ground fighting expert from what I can tell, so... I mean, that was kind of like the edge he had over his opponent, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think so. And Bisping looked a little hesitant to me, almost. And I think part of that could stem from the fact that, 10 years ago, in maybe 2006, 2007, they had trained together. And Bisping admitted himself in the lead-up to the fight that when they trained together all those years ago, George had kind of had his way with him. He was able to take him down at will and do kind of whatever he wanted to him. And part of me thinks that may have played into this fight in the sense that, maybe Bisping just hadn't gotten over that, or he was a little too hesitant to really, submit himself to trying to enact his game plan and his striking game because he was worried about getting taken down so much. And I don't know, Bisping didn't look at his normal aggressive self. He kind of looked more aggressive coming out in the second round, and I think that's part of the reason he got taken down, because he did kind of start pushing the pace, and especially after we saw George start to look tired, which is kind of uncharacteristic for George, but almost expected after a 5-year layoff. So George started to slow down. Bisping picked up the pace. George was able to take him down, and then after they got back up, it was another striking exchange. Bisping got a little careless, left his his right hand down a little too long when he was coming back from throwing a punch, and George landed a left hook to the jaw, put him down, followed him to the ground, landed a couple punches, and as it was up against the fence, which is how Bisping likes to get back up. He's real good at using the fence to his advantage, kind of scooting his back up or using his legs to walk off it. So George had him against the fence, and he kind of knew, which he said in the post-fight interview, he knew that if he gave Bisping a little bit of space, Bisping would instinctively kind of go to his hands and knees and try to get back up real quick. And sure enough, that's what he did, and George took advantage of that opening and jumped on his back and put in the choke, and Bisping was not able to get out of it. He real quickly locked that choke up.
Yeah, so, GSP ends up coming back and winning winning the championship, and but again, it wasn't like he did it super easy. He was definitely not unscratched as a winner. He gets busted open, but yeah, he did pull it off in the end. And I think, if he continues fighting, I honestly think we're going to see more of the same where, you may see him win more fights, but I don't think he's going to really run away with the fights. You remember, before he retired, he had a couple string of matches where they were really close.
Yeah, definitely. It was, his last couple fights were by no means landslide victories. They were hard-fought battles, and I think particularly if you look at the next couple options on who he could fight, he's the fourth guy in history to win a belt in 2 weight divisions, and he's currently in the heavier weight division for the first time. This is his first fight at middleweight, and the rest of the middleweight division is filled with monsters. It's the interim champ is Robert Whittaker, who's put away 2 of the top 4 guys recently. He finished, or I don't know, I can't remember if he finished them, but he beat Yoel Romero and Jacare Souza, who Yoel Romero is a Cuban Olympic wrestler that looks like he's out of a comic book, and Jacare Souza is this giant Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu ace, and Whitaker ran through those guys. And even if he doesn't fight Whitaker, he's got to face one of those guys, or he's got to face Luke Rockhold, who's just absurdly good. He's on the same team as Daniel Cormier. And other than that, you got Bisping. Chris Weidman's still out there. He's only won one fight in his last couple, but it was an impressive victory over Kelvin Gastelum, and he's such a big name and consistent guy before these last 4 fights or so that he's always 1 or 2 steps away from the title.
Yeah, but GSP came back. He's not washed. He showed us that he's for real, and he's likely going to keep fighting, trying to keep that title defended.
Yeah, either that or he goes down and tries to get his welterweight title back for the 3rd time, but that's no easy task because he's got Tyron Woodley down there who hits like a truck and can out-wrestle a tree.
Yeah, but now, it does open the way for a lot of intriguing possibilities like you laid out in the previous video. What could happen if he wins the title, and he has won the title, so we could see some interesting matches now.
Definitely look forward to seeing what he decides to do.
And then the next fight we should talk about is the TJ Dillashaw and Cody Garbrandt. I mean, let's just say it. I mean, Dillashaw finally put that loss in Garbrandt's column. It's got to feel good for him, and especially all the more sweeter winning a belt. So why don't you break down that fight for us?
Yeah, it was a lot of emotions coming into this fight, particularly well-timed moment to release that fabled knockout video from the gym days, and it was kind of a nice little exclamation point to put on all the trash talking before they finally got into the octagon. But it kind of played out in the first round the way I expected it to. Was TJ kind of trying to be successful from range, but Cody's just real quick and he's really good defense. He has really good movement, and TJ didn't land much in the first round. He landed some leg kicks, some body shots. He didn't really land a lot of head shots. I think at the end of the first round it was something like 15-1 for Cody or something like that, and it was all from TJ trying to get in and land punches. Cody using his head movements to get away and landed shots on TJ before he could get out of there. Particularly at the end of the round where he landed a shot and dropped TJ right before the bell. He was kind of trying to ground and pound him out to finish the fight before the bell rang, and TJ's a little wobbly walking back to his corner. And then, he gets back to his corner. He talks to Coach Dwayne Ludwig, who told him to do exactly what I thought he shouldn't do in the last video. I thought he should try to set up all of his big shots more, and his coach says, hey, TJ, give me more kicks, more high kicks, more body kicks. You don't have to set them all up. Just throw some out there. Which is exactly what he did. Midway through the second round, he threw a kick out there, and he caught Cody right on the jaw, dropped Cody right on his ass, and Cody was able to get back up, but, he's a little worse for wear for it. And then a little later in the round, punching exchange, and TJ landed a right hook before Cody did. Dropped Cody, put him down to the ground, and followed him down and pounded him out. The ref mercifully came in and stopped it before TJ did any real crazy damage to Cody.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't see the result coming. You had an undefeated fighter with the championship going up against who I thought was like his lesser rival, like the guy that that didn't stand as much of a chance against him, but boy was I wrong. And another thing that's interesting about mixed martial arts is it's like you really only have to make one mistake and it can cost you the fight. I mean, you see it so often, like a guy just takes one shot and is clean out cold. So, I mean, you make 1 or 2 mistakes and you can see what happens. You can end up losing your belt.
Yeah, I mean, those 4-ounce gloves do not leave a lot of padding to absorb some of that hit, and I was particularly surprised with this one because you figured if anybody was going to land a punching knockout, it was going to be Cody Garbrandt, who hits harder than anyone else in the division. TJ was just the first one to land it, and that's how it is. You make that one mistake, or somebody's timing is just a little bit better that one time, and any shot can land, finish a fight. Particularly when you're dealing with kicking someone in the head. Your leg is a lot heavier than your hand, and you land a kick on somebody's jaw. There's not much they can do about that one.
Yeah, and the third fight, we had the women's fight for the championship, and this was actually the one I was like the least sure about. Like I was a little iffy on this one, but yeah, I mean Namajunas, she ends up winning the championship, and boy, I mean, what a victory for her. She said she was going to spoil the party, and she did, and she's now the champion. So, like, what happened there, man?
It was another undefeated striker to the same, similar to Cody Garbrandt's been tearing through people, and Rose gave her that first L. I don't know what happened. There were very few people who would have said before the fight Rose is gonna win by first round knockout with a punch. That was an absurd line of thinking for most people, and that's kind of the consensus I've heard since then from all the podcasts and things that I listen to, and all you can say is wow. I mean, I'm not sure if it's Rose just had that good of a night. I mean, has improved by leaps and bounds since her last title shot. Where when they introduced the division, they had a bunch of girls in the house on The Ultimate Fighter, and the two girls that won the tournament fought for the title, and Rose lost to Carla Esparza, who then got destroyed by Joanne Jacek. And then a couple of years down the road, Rose has improved so drastically that we all saw what happened. It was that leaping left hook. She dropped her twice with it. I think Joanna just didn't see it coming for whatever reason.
Yeah, and I think it's one of those things that, for Jacek, you might try to rationalize and be like, oh, well, maybe she wasn't taking the fight seriously. Maybe she wasn't training. But I don't buy it. I mean, like, she definitely seemed like the type of fighter that remained hungry while she had the championship. So, I think it's just one of those things where, like I said, in a sport like this where you make one mistake, sometimes just one mistake, and you can end up on your ass and knocked out. And I think it's just one of those things that kind of happened, So, yeah, I mean, I think clearly Namajunas wasn't the favorite, but she comes in there and gets it done, so...
Yeah.
And next thing you know, we're 0-3 on our predictions on the main events.
That is true. Yeah, I think it was... I don't know whether Joanna kind of underestimated Rose's striking game or came in a little too confident. Or, I mean, we kind of, in the lead up to this fight, really saw Joanna kind of embracing the championship role and all the media, doing a ton of interviews. And a lot of people are saying that maybe she lost focus a little bit, but... Like you said, I don't buy it. She's so fierce that I can't see her doing anything intentionally that would hurt her chances to win the fight. She's been talking about her legacy and retiring as an undefeated fighter, and she's just a fierce competitor. And I think really it's just that Rose under Trevor Whitman and the rest of her camp has just improved so much and so drastically in such a short amount of time that she earned it. And it's a scary prospect because she's like 25 years old. She's one of the youngest champions in history. And man, is it going to be hard for anyone to beat her if she just keeps on getting better at the rate she has been.
Yeah, indeed. I mean, that's another thing that sometimes gets overlooked is like, with fighters' youth and how much potential they have to grow. I mean, obviously, once you're, up in your late 30s, you're probably not going to get much better, if at all better. But when you're young and you put in the time in, you pick up new things as you go along. You don't have your body working against you. So, yeah, I mean, she's now set up to, you figure these next couple years are going to be probably her prime years of her career. Having, great athleticism, still young and still learning.
Yeah, particularly because... If she's able to defend a couple more times, I mean that division is a lot of fun. There's a lot of really, really good fighters, and it's almost fun to see a new champion up there because Joanna had fought almost everybody at least once and pretty much ran through everyone to the point where there was not a ton of excitement to see anybody face her again, with the exception of Claudia Gadelha, who we saw fight her twice. But having Rose at the top and with how much potential she has and how young she has and how much she's improved over the past couple years, it's going to be a lot of fun to see what this does for the rest of the division. It's kind of a breath of fresh air. It can be invigorating for the rest of the girls, seeing that there's a new champ on top and seeing what Rose can do with the pressure and what she can do with all those contenders.
So I know I'm about to ask a question that I know it's going to be hard to answer if you don't know who the opponents are. But I mean, how many times do you think she successfully defends this title? I mean, is this a one and done, or do you think she's going to actually defend it a couple times, keep it for a long time?
I mean, it's hard to say. You know, every time somebody gets up there and takes a belt, it's really, in most cases, the divisions are so full of contenders that when you look past the champion, you have to say that they have a hard road ahead of them, with the exception of maybe light heavyweight. It's a bunch of older guys. There's not many giant names in there that are going to put up much of a fight past Cormier, John Jones, and Alexander Gustafsson. I mean, even though John Jones isn't even in the division right now because he's the perpetual fuck-up. But Rose is a division filled with super talented girls who are more than willing to give her all she can handle, and it's going to be a lot of fun to see how many times she can defend it. But if she keeps improving the way she has, and youth and time is still on her side, then it is not impossible to see her holding it for a while. Tell you what, though, I do not want to be the next girl to fight Yoni Jacek. I mean, with how fierce of a competitor she is and how angry she is before every fight, she's going to have a bonfire underneath of her coming into this next fight to get past that loss. And I wouldn't be surprised to see them do an immediate rematch. I mean, Joanna's been a team player the entire time, doing all the media, everything the UFC's asked of her, and defended 6 times. I mean, she has 7 victories in a row. There's not many champions who have that many victories consecutively that they haven't granted them an immediate rematch. So that's not, unfeasible. And even though she just made it look easy, that is not an easy fight for Rose next time around.
Yeah, that'd be real interesting if they do a rematch, because then who knows, maybe it is a one and done. But yeah, I mean, that's overall, I think this pay-per-view had a lot of shocking surprises in it, to those of us that are like really analyzing it closely. But at the same time, it's like I said, mixed martial arts is just one of those sports where you don't get a whole lot of margin for error when you're in that octagon or when you're in that ring. I mean, you make one mistake, a lot of times it costs you the match and you're flat on your ass. So, but that does it for our recap. Make sure to stay tuned, like the video, subscribe. We're going to keep talking about mixed martial arts going forward. That good enough?
Pat, call Justin a queer.
Call Justin a queer?
Oh, you heard it. Called you queer.